right, good evening. Welcome to yet another wonderful edition of Thinkly Talks, a place where we have conversation and dialogue with some amazing people from around the world. So we are back in Jaspreet's room today, Jaspreet's community, PlurAlity Dialogues. Jaspreet, a very warm welcome to you again.
Thank you very much, Vivek. Sorry for the delay. My Zoom app, probably it's been hearing me talk about us moving into the post-app world, and therefore it just refused to work. It just
Yeah,
completely refused to work. Sorry about that.
not at all. I think these things happen all the time. So Jaspreet, it's always fun chatting with you on AI, and I think we have had some lovely conversation with the last 4 weeks. But I think last week was something special. I think the whole chat room was lit with lots and lots of questions when we really talked about AI and singularity, right? And we basically decided to kind of double down a bit more this week on that. Of course, it was aided by Elon's very provocative statement that AI, as we know, is going to be smarter than every single human form by next year. So I think it's going to be, I'm looking forward to the next 30, 40 minutes with you. But before we do that, let's just take a quick recap on what happened in AI last week, right? So I'll just quickly share my screen. Let me know when my screen's up.
Yes.
Great. So basically, if you were to look at it, I mean, one of the things that happened, I mean, a lot of developments happened last week in the area of regulations. Uh, on one side, we had EU, which came up with the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. And then on the other side, we had, India, which basically apparently dropped the plans to require pre-approval for AI model launches, based on all the backlash I think they kind of came up with, right? So any reaction on this, Jaspreet?
Oh, it's apples and oranges, Vivek. The EU, all the 20, 30 plus countries, were working on this the right way, thrashing out this act over a year or so, negotiations across different countries. And, what they were doing was that they were building on their GDPR model
Right.
of tearing different risks, low risk to the highest risk. And they already had something to work on. And they've kind of added on the AI part there. India, on the other hand, was just a statement made by a minister, I think, in a bit of a fit of frustration, if it may, because one particular model did not show one particular leader in a good light. And so,
Right.
it said, okay, fine, every model now needs to be retrospectively tested. Frankly, even then I'd kind of talked about and given a statement out to some press people who had called saying that there's going to be rolled back because it's not a law, it's not an act, it's just a statement, it was an advisory, but it didn't even carry the weight of that. So I don't think there's
Right.
any there's any signal here in terms of that India is not going to regulate AI. I just hope that they aren't going to regulate AI by random statements. The EU, on the other hand, obviously always errs on the side of caution, and they always have the most strictest laws as far as tech is concerned. And already there are voices opposing it, saying that it will stifle innovation, etc., etc. But credit where it's due. Their first real, actual AI regulation act is out, and I think we should welcome that.
Right. I think some thoughts also is that, with the election year that's happening right now in India, this is also like a warning, shot across the board, because obviously it's also about trying to set up deterrent to all these models as they're trying to get their act together. But, more on the EU side, Jaspreet, how do you see it in terms of, I mean, is it also going on the path of pre-approvals and everything, or is it more about, general guidelines and,
No,
guardrails?
no. It goes beyond guidelines. I haven't frankly studied the act in detail. It's in my bucket list of about 400,000 items which I need to go through on AI, which happen every week. But it's fairly strict. For example, in some of the higher risk things, it calls for the fact that irrespective of where the AI model is developed, if it's kind of rolled out in the EU, people will have to conform to that act. So it's not that only if it's developed in the EU or anywhere it is, it needs to conform to that. Obviously, it is very strictly against deepfakes, copyright issues, etc., etc. And I don't know how much, how possible will it be for especially generative AI models. This covers all AI, but especially generative AI models to conform to that. EU has its own generative AI champions like Mistral, for example, out of France. And already the French President Macron has kind of opposed it, saying that it might not be passed in French Parliament. And so there are some issues regarding its, people say that it's kind of between innovation and safety. It's too much on the side of safety. And so, I mean, very frankly, one will have to study it more to see what it really has and hasn't.
Right. And another legislation that is making its way up through, really should I say, the US law is a very interesting proposition that's coming from Bernie Sanders, where basically he's talking about now having a 4-day week with no cut to pay, because he's saying AI and all the advances in technology is actually making productivity increase. And therefore humans are entitled now to a 4-week, work thing. And I think this is probably the first shot towards moving towards a, UBI, universal basic income. I mean, I know you are not a big fan of that. We've discussed that in detail, but politics and politicians, we're going to see some of this happening. Any thoughts on this?
I haven't seen this. I just saw one headline. You are much faster than I am, Vivek, in terms of, seeing all these items, etc. I just saw this, but I didn't relate it to AI, frankly. I mean, I'm seeing this for the first time that is related. AI has become again, there's an article I wrote, it has become the bogeyman for everything. I'm hungry because of AI. I'm not hungry because there's AI. Okay, so in fact, we talked about it, but a lot of the companies doing layoffs, I think, are just using it as an excuse. Right. And probably the same here. But what this reminds me, Vivek, is of something which Bill Gates said much earlier, of something called a robot tax. And he said that, if people are going to, if robots are going to do the work of human beings, they need to be taxed. And that tax needs to kind of get into universal basic income or equivalent for human beings. Right. The US, as you know, is very sharply divided between the left and the right. And I think both sometimes give out crazy statements for their own, which appeal to their own constituencies. With all due respect, I think this is the one which is coming from the left side of the constituency.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, so moving along.
Because I'm doing this from my phone. Vivek, can you see me? I can't see myself.
Oh, no, we can see you.
Okay, cool. That's good then. Okay.
Right. So, basically the next one really is about, Apple has been a laggard. I mean, I think in the last 4 weeks or 5 weeks, we've just not even touched upon Apple, right? But then, it's apparently been quietly making these acquisitions along the way, small AI companies, not very big ones. They made one Canadian company. And then I think around 2-3 days back, they just dropped this thing, right? Which is MM1, which is apparently their version of LLM, which is apparently trained again on some 350 billion parameters. So, people are really saying that, listen, I mean, Apple is very, very quietly plugging away in the background, and the next version of Siri will probably be the Siri that we all wanted it to be, right? And just on that, before I ask for your thought, I mean, I came across a very interesting statement by Benedict Evans, he mentioned, he said, look, I'm old enough to remember the last time people said that Apple wouldn't be able to do AI, right? And I think a very interesting side is that incumbents always try to make the new thing a feature. So if you think about it, for Apple, it's just a feature that's going to be part of our, our PCs, our mobiles, our iPads. Could you just linger on that point?
Okay. I would not underestimate Apple at all. You're absolutely right. In fact, they have probably made the highest number of investment in buying AI innovation through startups, patents, etc. More than Microsoft, more than Google. Yes, they have been not been out there, launching, if I may say so, yet another large language model. For that matter, if you think about it, so is Amazon. Okay, and that's so, and I think both Apple and Amazon, and since we're talking on Apple here, are companies which don't want to put out a language model out there because it's not going to do anything for them, frankly.
Right.
I mean, they're not in the search business. They're not in the productivity software business. I mean, Apple clearly, with all the investments it's making, will definitely come with, you know, building it into their products, like Benedict Evans has said here. And the feature part, I completely agree. In fact, now here's a news which I think I'm a little ahead of you, where I think I just caught this news 2-3 hours back sitting in a car, so I haven't read it. But there's this rumors of a massive Apple Google deal, which is in the
Oh,
works,
wow.
where Gemini will be integrated into Apple products. So I guess Apple does believe in Gemini more than a lot of other people do. And
Right.
Gemini will be integrated into Apple, much like the search was integrated into
Yeah.
Apple.
Right.
And I think that to close, I think they will come up with, each of their products becoming much, much better using generative AI anyway they use, using
Right.
generative AI rather than having their own. They don't need an Apple GPT. I mean, what's an Apple GPT going to do with them except make their fan base happy?
Right. That is very well said. I think in all of this, in all the noise, I think they seem to be very clear, right? And you know what? Today, I think we're having a problem with technology because I think my PowerPoint is now misbehaving. Just give me a second.
So while you
Uh,
struggle with your PowerPoint, we must also remember they did one more thing. They shelved their car project and have
yeah,
reallocated all the resources, the people as well as the money into AI and generative AI. So they're clearly a player.